After declaring we need space during Thanksgiving, my parents discovered an incredible truth. The rich aroma of baked turkey hung heavily in the kitchen, a stark contrast to the strained voices drifting through the adjacent living room. Emma stood at the counter, her fingers trembling as they kneaded the dough for the pumpkin pie. She didn't want to listen, but the words seeped into her consciousness like unwanted rainwater. "We just need some space, maybe a break," her mother's voice quivered, and her father's silence was louder than the clatter of silverware. Space felt like a taunt, a widening distance that gnawed at Emma's insides. Her parents, once partners in love, now felt like strangers entwined in this charade of familial obligation. She could feel the chasm between them growing each day since their witless agreement to take a little space. It haunted her thoughts. What if this space only opened the door to more heartache? Emma pressed her palms against the cool marble surface, an anchor to steady her desperation. Outside, the leaves that were once vibrant with autumn shades had turned brittle and brown, a metaphor that matched her heart, fragile and prone to break. Doubt sank into her marrow, but in the chaos, a kernel of determination flickered. She felt the need to mediate, to mend, but how could she stitch together the threads when she felt torn herself? With each beat of her heart, the situation became more precarious. Before we continue, I need to tell you about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system, and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click a bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. Each day blended into the next, the holiday season enveloping the town with a festive cheer that didn't reach the walls of Emma's home. Thanksgiving loomed closer, and the tension buzzed like static in the air. She longed for a sign, any sign, that would bring reconciliation. But haunting her thoughts was a revelation. The attic held memories, a dusty den of forgotten laughter and silent tears. After school each day, she climbed the creaky stairs, drawn by an invisible tether. Her heart raced with hope, but unease lingered in the corners of her mind. Would unearthing the past be salve or salt to wounds never healed? As she sifted through old letters and fading photographs, she uncovered stories that felt like they belonged to another world. Yet, with each revelation came a bittersweet ache of truth. How could she confront her parents with these remnants of their shared history against the backdrop of their recent turmoil? Then the phone call came, the funeral of an estranged uncle, a figure shrouded in mystery, a ghost of their family's past. Emma felt the ground shift beneath her. Would they come closer, united in grief, or fracture under the weight of resentment and old wounds? The more she delved into their lineage, the louder the echoes of the past grew, pressing heavily on her heart. Her determination to mend their fractures morphed into a desperate need to reveal the hidden truths. But the thought alone kept her awake at night, questioning not just what lay in their history, but who she would become in its wake. Emma stood at the juncture of revelation and uncertainty, breath caught in her throat. The truth about her family might be the key to mending their bonds or tearing them asunder. The attic grew darker, shadows deepened. In that dimly lit space, she wondered if she could confront the ghosts of history without getting lost among their narratives. The weight of her discoveries pressed upon her, a burden that felt heavier than time. Would her family survive the storm now brewing, or would it be another chasm carved into their shared existence? Emma wrestled with the question, her heart racing, filled with fear and the flickering hope that prompted her to act. Sitting in the attic, Emma's fingers brushed the surface of a brittle envelope, its corners curling like the edges of her heart. She hesitated, staring blankly at the old letters. Each piece of paper was a remnant of laughter, shared dreams, and perhaps the jagged edges of betrayal. She had stumbled onto their stories, but the truth remained elusive, swathed in the shadows that filled the cramped space. As she tore open the envelope, secrets unfurled within the ink, confessions about strained relationships and unresolved grievances. Emma exhaled sharply, her pulse quickening. She had hoped to find something uplifting, a connection that would inspire her parents to heal rather than dwell on the fragility of their marriage. The irony wasn't lost on her. Clinging to the past seemed to wrap her even tighter in the web of their dysfunction. What good were these memories if they only spotlighted the fractures? Outside, daylight faded, casting long shadows across the attic. Emma felt the tension twist inside her. The attic was both a harbinger of nostalgia and a haunting reminder of what was lost. Could confronting her family's history serve as a stabilizing foundation or merely deepen their divide? The complexities outshone the simplicity she craved, but she could feel an awakening inside her, a budding desire to understand and communicate. Action was necessary. Stagnation only deepened the cracks. She organized the letters meticulously, aiming to craft a narrative that might draw her parents together. The challenge loomed large, translating the raw emotions contained within these artifacts into something tangible and healing. Encouraged by a newfound resolve, she resolved to schedule a family meeting during the upcoming funeral. It would be a chance to unveil the truth disguised beneath layers of pain, the different shades of grief they'd been experiencing separately. If they could confront old wounds together, perhaps they could begin to stitch together their tattered quilt of familial love. The evening crept into nighttime, and as she picked her way back down the creaky stairs, Emma formulated a plan. Each step felt crucial. Would she confront her parents with these old letters right away, or find an elegant way to introduce the topic? Would they be receptive, or would it ignite past resentments? Every thought weighed heavily as she prepared herself to meet them that evening. As she joined her parents in the living room, their expressions mirrored the previous disconnection. They exchanged furtive glances, their bodies distanced on the couch, reminiscent of an uncharted divide. Emma's heart raced, a surge of emotions unspooled within her. She was no longer just the daughter trapped in a turbulent landscape. She was a potential architect of change, albeit a hesitant one. Gathering her courage, she cleared her throat, preparing to break the silence enveloping them. The word hung in the air, trembling. I found something that I think can help us. The moment felt pivotal, a clean break from the disillusionments of silence. If she could only navigate this correctly, perhaps they would embrace the possibility of healing. But before she could unravel her plan, her phone buzzed with a notification. A message from her cousin. The funeral arrangements had changed. Uncertainty flooded her heart. Would this upheaval threaten her fragile intentions? Emma took a breath, feeling the walls close in once more. The air was heavy, laden with expectations. She realized that every moment held the potential to shape their future, yet she remained on the precipice of decision. As the tension stretched, she understood uncertainly that this was just the beginning. Would she find the strength to lead her family through the web of shadows cast by their past? The time had come not only to confront the secrets, but to face the fear of what lay ahead. Knowing everything she had to gain and potentially lose, Emma took a step toward her parents, her voice ready to spill the truth. With the plan precariously balanced, the question pulsed in her mind. Would she dare to push open the door to confront the painful past that could either bring them together or tear them apart? Emma fought against the growing anxiety. The moment was slipping through her fingers. Would this be the moment her family would finally exchange truths instead of doubts? Or would it be another fracture in their already fragile dynamics? Emma's heart raced as she stood before her parents, awaiting their response to the sudden shift in plans for the funeral. The distant sound of sirens echoed outside, almost synchronizing with her mounting unease. As doubts swirled, she felt the atmosphere grow thicker, each second stretching into an eternity. The text on her phone seemed to trigger a crack in the fragile veneer of her intentions. Was this change an opportunity or a setback? She cleared her throat again, desperate to regain momentum. I know this funeral has thrown us all for a loop, but maybe it could also serve as a catalyst for us to talk. Emma's voice wavered, revealing her vulnerability behind the determination. Her parents exchanged another glance, one heavy with implications. It dawned on her then that their years of avoidance had transformed communication into a minefield. What if they would only stoke existing fires of resentment? The prospect ignited fear in her like dry tinder. "Emma, we're dealing with a lot right now." Her mother finally spoke, her voice barely above a whisper. "Maybe we should—" "No," Emma interrupted, the rawness of her emotions spilling out. "No more deflection, please. We have to confront what's been unsaid. We can't keep pretending everything's okay." The words hung there, raw and potent, awakening something deep within her. All it took was that one burst of honesty to ignite a flicker of recognition in her father's eyes. He leaned forward, a reluctant energy coursing through him. "What do you mean? What are you even suggesting?" Taking a breath, Emma pulled out the carefully folded letters, their creased surfaces stark against her palm. "These letters, they tell a story, a different version of the past. I thought if we could read them together, it might help us understand each other better." Her mother's expression shifted, concern warred with curiosity. "Do you really think digging up old wounds is the answer?" "I think what we've done so far isn't working," Emma replied. "We've been avoiding everything. What if facing it head-on could help us heal? We can't carry this burden anymore." Her father rubbed his temple, the weight of her words resonating in the silence that followed. "There's a chance we could end up worse off, you know?" "Perhaps, but isn't it scarier to stay as we are?" Emma pressed, sensing that this was a defining moment. She could almost feel the threads of their family's history curling around, ready to snap if not addressed. "What if we get angry? What if we fight?" her mother countered, defensive yet vulnerable. "Then at least we'll be honest," Emma said softly. "We owe it to ourselves to confront this, to stop the cycle of silence that's tearing us apart." The room temperature shifted as her words settled, an electric charge tinging the air with a sense of both risk and opportunity. For the first time, Emma felt a sense of agency, the weight of her parents' history intersecting with her own burgeoning resolve. They had been bound by their shared pain for too long. Perhaps it was time to turn that pain into a conversation, a bridge instead of a barrier. "Okay," her father finally said, his voice steadied as he reached for the letters. "Let's see what we can uncover." With that tentative agreement, Emma's heart swelled. This fragile pact was a small victory, a stepping stone toward a more profound exploration of their shared grief and unspoken fears. As her parents began to sift through the letters, each piece of paper seemed to thrum with urgency, alive with voices from the past demanding to be heard. But as she watched their faces transform with every unveiling, a new worry began to creep into the corners of Emma's mind. What if they stumbled upon secrets so painful that reconciliation became utterly impossible? The words on each page beckoned to be acknowledged, but begged the question, were they ready for the truths woven into their family tapestry? Emma felt a mix of anticipation and dread surge through her as the letters unraveled, taking them on a journey she had only begun to imagine. The road ahead was fraught with uncertainty, but the necessity of venturing into the unknown had never felt so imperative. As the last letter was revealed, a stirring realization took hold. Every truth unveiled would not just redefine their past, but shape the family they would become. Courage surged within Emma, but the shadow of doubt lingered. How would they respond when faced with the raw honesty of their own flaws? The ink on the letters seemed to pulse, throbbing with a question of its own. Was the truth worth the risk that lay ahead? As Emma steeled herself, the first letter unfolded like a veil lifted from the past. The familiar scent of aged paper mingled with the poignant tension crackling within the room. Her heart drummed a rapid tempo as her father read the first few lines aloud, his voice quiet yet unsteady. Each word hung heavily in the air, a mixture of nostalgia and regret threading through them. Her mother, unable to contain her curiosity, leaned closer. Emma grasped the edges of the table, grounding herself against the swell of emotions rising like a tide. This was it, the moment they had both long feared and needed. Emma's thoughts raced, trying to map out the implications of the words being recited. I often wondered if we ever stood a chance, her father continued, his brow furrowing deeply as he attempted to wrestle with the vulnerability laid bare in front of him. What does that even mean? Her mother interrupted, eyeing her husband. Did you know this? No, he replied, his voice sharp as he shot back a mixture of disbelief and accusation. I didn't know. I thought we buried these feelings. Emma held her breath. Grief, sadness, and betrayal rolled off them in waves. This new development triggered a myriad of questions in her mind. Where had the rifts emerged? Had her parents truly suppressed every shred of honesty for years? Mom, there's more, Emma prompted, desperate to redirect the simmering tensions into constructive dialogue. Let's keep reading. Her mother tightened her grip on the paper, exhaling a shaky breath before she nodded hesitantly, as if she were preparing to dive into an icy lake. Each additional letter seemed to peel back layers that had been locked away for too long, their paper trails vivid reminders of heartache, misconceptions, and unsaid apologies. I never meant to let the distance grow between us, her father read again. This time, his voice cracked, revealing a softness beneath the stern exterior he worked so hard to maintain. Emma felt a sudden rush of empathy gripping her heart. Beneath the surface, a shared realization was brewing. They had all been fighting their own battles, alone in their respective corners. Please, let's not turn this into a blame game, Emma interjected, the urgency in her tone rising. Learning this history gives us an opportunity to acknowledge our roles. Hesitations flitted across their faces. Doubt mingled with the blood coursing through Emma's veins. They were all on precarious footing, hanging over a chasm of vulnerability. The fear of falling deeper was palpable, but within that fear lay the possibility of rebuilding their shattered connections. The next letter revealed her mother's struggles, framed in a context Emma had never fully understood. Words like shame, inadequate, and failure echoed ominously. Emma felt a new fissure opening, not between her parents, but within herself. How had she missed this? Had she too been blind to her mother's silent cries for help? Her heart raced at the implications. Was she culpable in this unraveling? Could she have reached out earlier, shown kindness or understanding? And what did it mean for her own identity, forged in the fires of unacknowledged sadness? Mom, you were never a failure, Emma finally found the courage to affirm, her voice steady this time. You did the best you could with what you had. Her acknowledgement sparked the faintest flicker of light in her mother's eyes, lingering there like a tender flame. I just didn't want to burden you, her mother murmured, her voice fraught with an ache that echoed in Emma's core. As more letters were unearthed, the conversation deepened, laying bare hopes and regrets. But every new discovery unspooled the thread of clarity they were weaving together, plunging them instead into the raw chaos of their tangles. Suddenly, in the middle of a passage, Emma felt a jolt. Her fingers brushed against a thicker envelope wedged awkwardly between the letters. While her parents remained caught in the narrative, she delicately pulled it out, sensing the weight of secrets thickening the air even further. Wait, Emma interrupted suddenly, her heart pounding with apprehension. There's something else. Her voice quivered, all at once electrifying the atmosphere. Tension radiated from her as she clutched the envelope tightly. What confessions awaited them within? And when they opened this Pandora's box, would they emerge whole, or would they unravel further? With her heart pounding, Emma's gaze shifted between her parents and the envelope, feeling the gravity of an unexplored territory lying just beneath the surface. They were all poised on the brink of revelation, unwittingly drawing closer to the truth that might shatter or ultimately reshape the family legacy they had inherited. Emma's fingers trembled as she held the envelope, its heaviness signaling worn edges and perhaps buried truths. It felt like a stone, solid yet yielding to the deeper emotions swirling around her. The silence that enveloped them was thick, charged with unspoken fears. With a sharp intake of breath, she summoned her courage and broke the seal, the sound releasing a tension that hummed in the air. What if it's something we shouldn't know? Her mother whispered, apprehension lacing her voice. It was a question neither Emma nor her father had considered, and for a moment doubt flickered through Emma's mind. Would uncovering this secret drive them apart again, or would it present a pathway to healing? Opening the envelope, she hesitated, then pulled out a series of photos. The images were worn, edges frayed. They depicted happier moments, family vacations overflowing with laughter, candid shots at celebrations, and one even captured a sun-soaked afternoon where her parents shared a kiss under a broad tree. Yet, as Emma studied them closely, a familiar face jogged her memory, a man who seemed oddly out of place. "Who is this?" Emma asked, her voice steady despite the tumult brewing within. She pointed toward the stranger in the photos, a man with kind eyes and a lopsided grin. The familiar sense of unease returned, swirling through the room like autumn leaves caught in a gale. Her father's gaze darkened, and he clenched his fists, his jaw tightening. "Just an old friend," he replied, but there was an urgency behind his words that didn't match the casualness of his tone. "An old friend who appears in our family's happiest moments?" Emma pressed, feeling emboldened by the need for honesty. "What's going on here?" Her mother's breathing became shallower as she glanced from Emma to her husband. "He told me to trust him, but I thought it was just a passing friendship. It had started, well, after things had become tenuous for us." Each word became a knife, slicing through the fragile air as Emma confronted the reality of their relationships. Was her mother revealing a hidden betrayal? Or had this connection simply been a source of support during challenging times? The line between leadership and betrayal blurred, leaving Emma grappling with emotions she was unprepared to face. "I can't keep pretending everything is perfect," Emma declared, her heart racing. "You both need to share the truth, not just for you, but for our family." The declaration hung in the air, challenging the silence encasing them. That proclamation was not merely an urge grasped in rhetoric. It felt like a conviction, firm and resolute. Emma steeled herself for the storm that might follow, but she realized her own growth was no longer about saving others. It stemmed from demanding truth for her own peace. "This man," she continued, "represented something you needed. What does that say about you two, and about me?" The question echoed in the room, reverberating against her family's hidden struggles. Their silence became palpable, thick with realizations and introspection. Emma understood that this moment was a pivotal juncture. She could demand clarity, yet in doing so, she was forcing them to confront their tangled past. The room felt smaller. The shadows threw their fears into stark relief. Emma waited for them to respond, feeling the tension coil tighter, her heart racing, not just with anticipation, but recognition of the power she was beginning to grasp over her own narrative. "Perhaps it's time we all face the truth, together," Emma prompted, her voice low but unwavering. "No more secrets." Her father nodded, lingering guilt etched into his features, while her mother's eyes brimmed with uncertainty, yet flickered with hope. They were on the precipice, the fear of what lay before them, battling against the promise of growth and understanding. As explicitly as that resolution hung before them, Emma's own guilt intertwined with resolve. With clarity gleaming in her heart, she recognized that facing the enigma might lead to revelations about herself, too. But the deeper truths awaited, and just as in the letters, the journey through that unknown territory lay heavily concealed beyond layers of fear, awaiting its time to be uncovered. The door to their lives had been cracked open, and beyond it lay a confrontation with their most profound truths, with the question of personal growth spinning like a compass in her heart. And as she readied herself for what lay ahead, another thought gripped her. What if they uncovered something more, something that challenged the very foundation of their relationship? Would the truth truly set them free, or would it bind them closer in new ways they could never have imagined? Emma felt the weight of the photos held tightly in her grasp, a physical reminder of emotions fraying at their edges. Her heart danced at the precipice. She could feel the adrenaline coursing through her veins, urging her to push forward into the shadows her family had kept hidden for too long. "Tell me about him," she demanded, her voice steady, igniting a spark of defiance inside her. "I deserve to know who he is and how he fit into your lives." It was daunting, yet liberating, to stake this ground. She was done being the emotional crutch. It was time to be a sister and daughter, not just the keeper of secrets. Her mother looked away, eyes filling with unwept tears. "Emma, you don't understand. This man he was my lifeline during dark times. Your father and I—" Her voice trailed off, as if attempting to conceal the real horror of their years apart, a horror Emma couldn't yet fathom. "Mom, please, what dark times? What was really going on?" Emma pressed, pressing the urgency deeper into her mother's silence. "The truth is," her mother finally murmured, "after the move, things fell apart for us. Your father was absorbed in his work, and I felt abandoned, lost. This man offered guidance." "Emotional support that bypassed your marriage?" Her words sliced through the room like a perfectly aimed arrow, each syllable soaked in both accusation and sorrow. The truth cut deeply, yet Emma's determination only stiffened. She needed to pull every thread to unravel the fabric of their deceit. Her father's fists uncurled slowly, regret shadowing his face. "I was never aware of her connection to him until she told me. I thought it was just a friendship." Each confession strained the room. Emma wrestled with a rising tide of anger and heartache. How could they choose to drift apart rather than confront their issues together? "Is that what you believe?" she implored, voice rising in urgency. "Your friendship with an outsider meant more than the family you built?" "Emma, no," her mother pleaded, wiping her eyes. "It's not that simple." Yet, as Emma stood rooted in the reality of their fragility, her mind whirred with possibilities of reflection and interpretation. Was this a reflection of their failures, or was it a testament to resilience, finally breaking the bonds of years marked by secrets? How can we make any sense of the truth when it's hidden by the shadows of betrayal? Emma's question hung, charged and painful. Was she meant to accept this painful truth, this revelation that felt like a violent earthquake threatening to shatter her family foundation? Her heart raced, propelling her forward into the abyss of possibility. She visualized a future where they could confront their past without the shackles of fear binding them. "We must change," she insisted. "We can break this cycle. Let's face this head on, not just with words, but with action." Her parents exchanged glances, a flicker of comprehension crossing their faces. Emma understood what was unfolding, the potential for renewal amidst complexity, how the unveiling of their truth connected to her own evolving narrative. She could reclaim her identity, her power, and with it, the agency to navigate this turbulent landscape collectively. "That starts now," she asserted, her resolve solidifying into a call to action. "We need to confront whatever emotions arise, without the belief that this will damage us forever. We can shape how this family will look moving forward." As her mother nodded, an echo of uncertainty lingered in the air, but hope shimmered faintly beneath it, just enough to sustain them through the dark conversations yet to come. Emma's heart pulsed against the insistent pressure of not just truth outlining their past, but also of the awareness she was cultivating within herself. Yet underlying doubt simmered. Would revelations bring cleansing, or would the delicate structure of their family dissolve entirely? Emma stole one last glance at the photographs scattered between them, symbols of happier days twisting into the darkness of their tangled emotions. She felt a stir of determination and curiosity. What more lay beneath the surface? More than perhaps she was yet prepared to receive. That gnawing feeling tugged at her, a need to dig deeper than the surface. How would they approach the next layer? Would she find that thread connecting their family to something even larger than personal? Discovery? As she pondered the questions spinning in her mind, she grasped the truth that her own journey had just begun, and the shadows still loomed large over her family's story, waiting to unveil their interconnected truths that might ultimately define them all. The hum of tension lingered in the air, each second stretching far too long as Emma waited for her parents to find their voices. The photographs lay like heavy secrets between them, and she sensed a shift taking place beneath the surface of their fragile relationships. Okay, let's be honest about everything, she urged, finding a clarity that cut through her earlier uncertainty. This wasn't just about uncovering the past, it was also about redefining the foundation on which her family stood. The urgency to carry the conversation forward swelled within her, shaping her thoughts into a precise strategy. Her father shifted in his seat, visibly torn between the weight of guilt and the hope of conversation. "I'm willing to hear whatever truth you feel we need to confront," he finally murmured. Each word seemed an olive branch tossed into turbulent waters as he mustered the courage to grapple with his own frailty. "Let's talk about the guilt," Emma said, fixing her gaze on her mother. "What do you really feel about what you did? You had a choice, and that choice hurt us." The words hung in the air, raw and unyielding. Her mother's face flushed, layers of emotion weaving through her expression. "I know I failed you. I failed your father, too. But I was so alone, Emma. I thought keeping my connections would somehow hold everything together." "But it didn't," Emma replied, a voice echoing steadiness amidst turmoil. She was no longer a passive observer. She was an active participant in dismantling the barriers that had held them captive for too long. "What about my feelings? You involved me in this web of secrecy without asking how it affected me." The room was thick with revelation, and yet Emma felt a stirring beneath her anger, a recognition that she had a role in navigating this emotional labyrinth. "I can't help but wonder, what can I learn from this?" The question enveloped her, demanding exploration. Her father raised his hand, a gesture of defense, but rooted in acknowledgement. "We can't change the past, but we can choose how we approach the truth moving forward. This is our chance to be honest, Emma, and I don't want to lose you." The tremor in his voice hinted at buried fears, igniting a flicker of understanding within her. "Then let's start by addressing the underlying issues," Emma pushed forward, embracing the challenge ahead. "We can't just skim the surface. We need to dive deeper into these walls we've built." Her mother inhaled deeply, drowning in vulnerability. "I felt suffocated by expectations, including my own. I never wanted you to carry their weight." In that moment of brutal honesty, Emma felt the contours of her family's history morphing, reshaping the pain into something tangible, something they could confront together. The idea of breaking these cycles stirred a fire within her. "Let's create a platform where we can each voice our fears, our expectations, and hold each other accountable." Even as doubts lurked in the recesses of her mind, Emma focused on the path before them. "This process will demand courage, mine as well as yours. It's about exploring raw emotions, acknowledging pain, but also about learning how to forgive," she articulated, her voice vibrant with a mixture of hope and uncertainty. The thought eluded her momentarily. Would forgiveness pave the way for healing, or would it open doors to even more complicated feelings? As her parents processed her words, a blend of recognition and apprehension washed over their faces. They were grappling with their pasts, but she sensed the germination of potential for growth, a shared commitment to embark on this journey, however fragile. "Can we begin now?" Emma pleaded, feeling the gravity of the moment pin her heart to the ground. "Can we face our truths head on?" Her mother nodded slowly, an agreement wrapped in resignation. Yes, let's unravel this together, whatever it takes. The room shifted as an opportunity unfolded in the space of their shared discomfort. A new chapter lay before Emma, one ripe with the promise of rediscovery and understanding. But as she looked around at her fractured family, an unsettling realization pushed at the corners of her mind. What if uncovering deeper truths opened a Pandora's box they weren't prepared to handle? Would this confrontation strengthen the bonds they were so desperately trying to repair, or would it expose fissures they never even knew existed? Emma took a deep breath, resolved to tread this unpredictable path, unsure of where it might lead, but heartened by the stirring within. What lay on the other side of honesty and vulnerability? Her journey into the depths of her family's truth had only just begun. The air crackled with a combination of anticipation and dread as Emma prepared to journey deeper into the muddled terrain of her family's past. The discomfort that had enveloped them brought an odd sense of clarity. It was a reminder that vulnerability could be the precursor to growth. She had taken the first bold step by initiating the conversation, but now came the crucial task of navigating the emotional labyrinth they had all carefully constructed over the years. Looking at her parents, Emma felt a wave of determination surge within her. They had finally pledged to confront their truths, but it would take more than verbal promises to truly peel back the layers of hurt and disappointment. Emma's heart raced, the magnitude of what lay ahead compressing her chest in both fear and excitement. "We need a structure for our discussions," she proposed, her voice firm. "This isn't just about me questioning you. It's about shared understanding and respect." Her father nodded, his expression a complex mixture of hope and anxiety. "What do you suggest?" he asked, his curiosity a tenuous grasp on control amid chaos. Emma took a moment to collect her thoughts. "Let's set aside time once a week where we can each express our feelings without interruptions. If something feels too heavy or sensitive, we can put it on the agenda for the next session. It won't be easy, but perhaps it will help us be honest about our fears and desires." As she spoke, she recognized the gravity of her words, the commitment required, the potential backlash, and the discomfort involved in pulling the triggers of past trauma. Her mother, visibly contemplating the idea, exhaled slowly and replied, "I think that's a good starting point, but how do we ensure it doesn't turn into another blaming game?" Emma settled into a more contemplative posture. "We need to commit to using I statements and expressing how actions made each of us feel instead of attributing blame. It's important that we focus on understanding each other rather than defending ourselves instinctively." The suggestion stimulated a silence that begged respect. Emma watched her parents absorbing the weight of her proposal. While her mother's body radiated tension, her father appeared to wrestle with the effort of considering this shift in dynamics. "What if we find truths we're not ready to confront?" her mother finally murmured, voice shaky. "Then we'll deal with them, but we do it together," Emma answered, feeling empowered by her own conviction. What has been hidden can't be ignored, and pretending the past doesn't exist won't help us move forward. As the conversation continued, Emma waded deeper into the waters of her emotions, now aiming to pull back the curtain on her own feelings and perspectives about the family crisis. She began to understand herself in relation to their struggles. Was she holding on to resentment, partly because it felt easier than the messy task of forgiving? It was time to confront her own vulnerabilities just as much as the rest of them. "Let's each write down what we hope to achieve in this process," she proposed. "Setting visible goals could aid us in focusing our energies on constructive change instead of lingering in the past." The quill in her hand quivered as she prepared to articulate assumptions and expectations. What was buried inside could not merely be addressed, it had to be expressed, faced head-on, and transformed into action. As they each scribbled down their desires, Emma felt a warmth wash over her, a burgeoning sense that they were, quite literally, taking the first steps towards reconnecting. But just then, a new flicker of unease washed over her. She questioned whether her desires for closeness were just a mask for unresolved pain. Had she truly forgiven them, or was she grasping for reconciliation to ease her own anguish? "Can we promise to hold one another accountable?" Emma asked, breaking the silence. "I think it's vital we remember our individual responsibilities in this journey, not just the past failures of one another." The room hung heavily with unspoken potential, caught between fear of unraveling and hope for renewal. As they set off on this intricate journey of expressing truths, each family member was left with their own burdens, the complexities of intentions, desires, and the weight of past pain. Would they succeed in reclaiming the delicate ties that bound them together? Each stroke of Emma's pen felt reminiscent of turning the pages to a story still being written. As the clock ticked onward, she couldn't help but wonder, what would happen when the reflections manifested, perhaps exposing deeper divides or secrets left unexamined? Emma braced herself for what was yet to unfold, aware that the most painful revelations often held the seeds for profound transformation. In the days that followed their initial agreement to confront the family's ghosts, Emma felt a strange blend of hope and trepidation. The structure she proposed became a lifeline, offering them a semblance of order amidst the unfolding chaos of emotions. Yet, as she prepared for the first actual session, doubt crept into her mind like a shadow. Would her family truly engage in this process, or would long-standing defenses rise like walls to shield them from the truths they feared to confront? The evening of their first discussion arrived, and Emma sat nervously in the living room, her palms clammy around the notebook tiled with barely legible, hastily scribbled notes. She had strategically chosen to prepare some guiding questions for each of them, bearing in mind the I statements they had discussed. As her parents shuffled in, she noticed the tension embedded in the air like an uninvited guest. "All right, let's get started," Emma said, striving to project a blend of warmth and authority. "How about we each share one thing we want to explore tonight?" She was surprised by the steadiness in her voice. Her mother looked down, twirling a lock of hair, as if it offered comfort from the uncertainty. "I suppose I'll go first, then," she said, with a hint of resignation. "I want to understand why we've stopped being a family. What happened to our connection?" Emma nodded, sensing the weight of vulnerability in her mother's admission. This was a sacred space, one that could either erupt into blame or foster understanding. "Can you put that in an I statement?" The invitation hung in the psychic air as her mother took a deep breath. "I feel lonely and disconnected from you both," she said finally, the words falling heavily from her lips. "Because what contributed to that?" Emma prompted gently, inviting her mother to dig deeper and own her feelings rather than assigning blame. Her mother's gaze flickered from Emma to her father, who sat rigidly, eyes fixed on the floor. "Because it seems like we're just going through the motions. There are walls built up around us, walls that prevent us from even talking about hard things." Emma's heart raced as she sensed a pivot moment. This was it. This could be the turning point in dismantling those protective barriers. "Dad, how does that resonate with you?" Her father shifted uncomfortably in his chair. "I realize I've distanced myself," he confessed, voice low yet raw. "There's been a lot I bottled up, and I thought silence was protecting everyone." Silence descended again, but this time it felt charged with potential rather than discomfort. "Let's not forget," Emma interjected, holding her pen poised above her notebook, "these sessions are not just about the past, but shaping the future." "Right," her mother said, visibly trying to regain her composure. "I want to move forward, but I don't know how." Emma took a risk. What if we write down individual dreams for this family? What do we want it to look like in 10 years? As they began to articulate their visions, Emma felt empowered through her role as facilitator. She was no longer just navigating her family's struggles, but offering them tools of self-reflection and accountability. Each vision penned was a commitment, a promise toward transformation. But a nagging voice in her head urged caution. Was she pushing too quickly? In their raw vulnerability lay the potential for profound growth, But it also revealed a chasm of unknowns. What if confronting unresolved emotions unleashed deeper-seated conflicts, or worse, tore them apart? As they shared their aspirations, Emma recognized how critical these sessions would serve her growth. When releasing hidden feelings was synonymous with fear, her courage became a beacon. Yet she couldn't shake the apprehension of confronting her darkest fears. What if she pushed too hard and lost everything? Just as they marshaled their collective thoughts into potential futures, the doorbell chimed unexpectedly, echoing through the hushed room. Emma felt the quickening of her pulse as she exchanged glances with her parents, all curiosity tinged with anxiety. Who could that be? Her mother wondered aloud, breaking the fragile atmosphere. As Emma approached the door, her heart raced with anticipation. Were they ready for whatever revelation awaited, or was it a distraction threatening to derail their fragile progress? With a deep breath, she opened the door, ready to face whatever awaited on the other side, not knowing it would bring to light questions about her own identity that she had scarcely dared to confront. The door swung open to reveal a familiar face, a distant cousin, Tom, who had always been a jovial presence in their family gatherings. His smile was warm, but the moment he noticed the tension in Emma's eyes, it faltered. "Hey, I hope I'm not interrupting anything important," he said sheepishly. Emma's heart sank slightly. This was not just another family visit. It was a critical moment in her family's quest for healing. Yet something about Tom's presence also sparked a thread of relief. She ushered him inside with a faint smile, catching her breath as her parents eyed the newcomer. "Actually, we were just about to talk about some family history," Emma said, her voice wavering, glancing significantly at Tom before turning back to her parents. "Maybe you could join us?" Tom's eyebrows raised in intrigue, a hint of apprehension flickering in his eyes. "I'm game. What's going on?" Emma swallowed hard. This was an unexpected twist, one she hadn't planned for, yet perhaps it could serve a greater purpose. It was another layer of honesty needed to navigate the uncharted waters ahead. A lot, actually. We're trying to unpack some family dynamics and understand our past better. Your insights could be valuable. Her mother shot her a look, a mix of surprise and curiosity, while her father appeared contemplative. Tom nodded slowly, adopting a solemn approach. "I've seen some of what's been going on in the family. Sometimes it's easier to talk to an outsider." Emma felt her pulse quicken. This was risky territory, yet she knew that letting Tom in could catalyze breakthroughs they desperately needed. This outsider's perspective might shine a new light on their buried issues. "Exactly," she pressed, gesturing toward an open seat. "Please, join us." As Tom settled in, Emma felt emboldened. This was her chance to shape both their narratives and the bonds they shared as a family. They exchanged quick introductions, but Emma could sense uncertainty brewing at the edges of the room. It was palpable. After a brief round of small talk, Emma took the plunge, guiding the conversation back to its heavier roots. "We were discussing the walls that have formed between us. Tom, you've known us all for years. How do you perceive our family dynamics?" Tom hesitated, studying their faces with careful consideration. From the outside, it seems like the affection is there, but hidden behind barriers. "I've noticed you all keep emotions at a distance, almost like a facade to protect yourselves." Emma's heart quickened. His words were savage, yet illuminating. She exchanged glances with her parents, and beneath the exterior, she could see the longing for deeper connection manifest in their expressions. "Maybe that's part of the problem," her father muttered as he rubbed the creases on his forehead. "We pretend that everything is okay, when in truth we're barely holding it together. It's very difficult to admit vulnerability, especially in a family where emotions get tangled up with expectations," Tom remarked, leaning forward slightly. His candid observations seemed to ignite a spark among her parents. "What do we do now?" Emma asked softly, channeling her newfound confidence into the discussion. "How do we go beyond awareness? I believe it begins by being honest with yourselves. Sometimes acknowledging that pain is the first step toward understanding. You all must confront your own roles in this struggle," Tom replied. His voice was steady, acting as a lighthouse upon turbulent seas. A flicker of recognition crossed her mother's face. "He's right," she said slowly. "I can't suppress my feelings anymore, particularly that I've hurt you both." Emma felt a rush of pride at her mother's willingness to face the uncomfortable truth, a moment of bravery blooming where she had seen only pathos before. "We have to start somewhere," she urged, her voice gaining strength. "Even if it hurts, we owe it to ourselves to properly explore our emotions." The room felt charged. Space opened for the usable truths and existing vulnerabilities that needed facing, much like the letters they had pored over. Tom nodded in solidarity. "Exactly. Don't be afraid of what might come up. It's all part of the healing process." As the conversation deepened, every voice became an essential thread woven into their fabric of their exploration. Emma absorbed each moment, reframing their discourse. Tom's presence had become an unexpected catalyst. He represented clarity in the emotional fog that had surrounded them for too long. Her father leaned forward, eyes glistening with unshed tears. "I need to admit, I've shut down because I was afraid. Afraid of your mom's secrets, afraid of losing the family I love. But hiding has only severed us more." His admission hung in the air like a veil lifting, revealing a mutual desire for honesty. "I've buried my own fears, relabeling them to protect myself," her mother added softly, "not realizing that through this mask of indifference, I've allowed towers of loneliness to construct in our home." Tom glanced aimlessly at the family photos, now unanchored from their earlier narrative. "The past is a part of who we are, but it shouldn't captivate your present or future." Emma's heart swelled with hope. They were on the brink of transformation, every confession melting the icy walls that had insulated them for years. "So, how do we create a family that builds bridges after all this?" she inquired, the momentum shifting toward collaborative healing. "By expressing love and support for one another, and through honest conversations, even when it's uncomfortable," Tom suggested. "Honesty is the backbone of rebuilding trust and connection, a necessary tool in this project." As they shared dreams of what healing looked like, Emma felt the embers of connection flaring. The words her parents exchanged were laced with intention, each syllable knitting their hearts closer together. "What if we all wrote down something we want to change moving forward, something actionable, not just aspirations," she proposed, leaning into this newfound affirmation. After gathering their thoughts, they shared aloud, each statement layered with vulnerability. "I want to show vulnerability rather than fear," her father admitted, voice clearer than before. "I want to lift the weight of secrets and reclaim openness," her mother added softly. And for Emma, "I want to create a home built on trust, where we can express the spectrum of our emotions fearlessly." As acknowledgments washed over them, Emma glimpsed a tapestry of healing unfurling. Tom's poignant participation had tilted the balance, exposing their hesitations that were burgeoning into revelations. With renewed clarity, they wrote down actionable statements that would manifest over the weeks ahead. A seed had been planted, awareness had transformed into commitment. A flood of hope enveloped the room, washing away the stagnant waters of despair. The journey ahead would be complex, riddled with the shadows of their past,